Hey, so remember last week when we talked about the future of Disneyland through Disneyland Forward, how the expansion may end up going, how the parking lots will become theme park space, and the future of Disneyland is looking really bright? Well, we're going to talk about that again today, except not just Disneyland. We're going to be talking about Tokyo Disneyland and Walt Disney World and Shanghai and Hong Kong and Paris. All of the Disney parks could have a very, very bright future ahead of them if they follow the example that Tokyo Disney Sea has just set, because oh my goodness, Fantasy Springs is actually one of the best themed lands I've seen in a theme park ever. Let's talk about that, okay, for a second. Originally conceived as a solely Frozen-themed expansion to Tokyo Disney Sea, Fantasy Springs grew into something so much bigger over the course of the next few years into 2020, 2021, and now, into 2022, 3, and 4. Now, instead of just Frozen, you can find attractions and sort of like mini-lands, neighborhoods dedicated to Peter Pan, Tinkerbell, which I guess are kind of the same thing, Tangled, and Frozen. And those are just the big marquee attractions and restaurants. There are little Easter eggs to various Disney animated films all throughout the land, and it's really fun to just sort of look at the rockwork or like little details and see where you can maybe find a little magic mirror hiding in the waterfall there. I see you. You're not slick. And me, upon viewing these videos, note I'm only showing you the exterior of the land so far. We haven't even gotten into the attractions and restaurants and buildings. I, like a lot of other people, have been sort of asking myself, clamoring for an answer from Disney, although they wouldn't give one for a while, as to whether or not maybe someday, if we're really good, we can expect this in the States. Please? And that is what we are talking about today. Not only are we going to go through every single Fantasy Springs attraction and talk about how amazing it is, we are also going to talk about the feasibility, the possibility of Disney bringing this land to other theme parks around the world. Maybe Disneyland Forward, maybe a Magic Kingdom expansion, maybe a Walt Disney Studios expansion out there in Paris. I think the answer is a little bit more positive than we want to believe, but again, who's to say for sure? We don't know. We have no idea. And if we do have any idea, it's going to be a number of years. So let's talk about that first. Remember Tron? Y'all remember Tron Light Cycle Run, right? What a doozy. I feel like I'm the only human being alive in this world who thinks that Tron Light Cycle Run is an S-tier attraction. I know it's mainly just my love for Tron Legacy, but dang it, do I love the environment of that ride. Even if the coaster is only a minute long, the experience begins for me as soon as I step into the queue. As soon as I step into the area around Light Cycle Run and that music starts playing, I am locked in and ready to enter the grid. Oh, I love this ride. There was, however, if you recall, a problem because they announced Tron Light Cycle Run for the Magic Kingdom at D23 Expo 2017, and we were all so excited for Tron Light Cycle Run to come to the Magic Kingdom. They weren't tearing down Space Mountain and building Tron. We got both. The problem was, however, the exclusivity clause that is supposedly, this is just alleged, a rumor, that is baked into the contract of Disney's overseas parks, attractions, and lands had not expired at the time of them announcing this. And Disney could not break ground on Tron Light Cycle Run until that exclusivity clause had expired. The ride was meant to be exclusive to Shanghai for a certain period of time, and then once that expired, then they could bring it to the American parks. Then we have problem number 2. COVID-19 becomes a worldwide pandemic, shutting down every single Disney park across the globe. And when I say shut down, I mean shut down. I don't think they were doing even like maintenance work on the park at this time. And maybe just light crews of teams making sure the attractions don't break down from disuse. But aside from that, the parks were essentially empty. So that's another delay on Tron Light Cycle Run until you can get large groups of people back together to work on this roller coaster. So finally, 6 years later in 2023, last year, the attraction finally opened. And like I said, I love it, but a lot of people say it's too short. I understand. Okay, I get you, I hear you. Unfortunately, I am in love with this ride. It's up there with the Haunted Mansion and the People Mover for me. Okay, this is fantastic and all, but why are we talking about the third best attraction at the Magic Kingdom and not about Fantasy Springs? I looked at the title. I thought this video was about Fantasy Springs, and it is. The same exclusivity clause that applied to Shanghai Disneyland, to Tron Light Cycle Run, applies to Tokyo Disney Sea and to Fantasy Springs. It was 5 years scheduled after the opening of Tron Light Cycle Run in Shanghai that Tron was supposed to open at the Magic Kingdom. Shanghai opened in 2016, Magic Kingdom was supposed to open in 2021. Obviously, it didn't. We had the COVID delay with those extra 2 years, but you get what I'm trying to say here. We won't see Fantasy Springs if they even have plans to bring something similar to the American parks for another minimum 5 years. Okay, so now that we've talked about the bad news, some of the bad news, there's more coming on later in this video, don't worry, I'm not done whining yet. Let's talk about some of the cool stuff, some of the insane stuff that visitors can see when they visit Fantasy Springs when it opens to the general public later this year. And we'll start with what everybody else is talking about, the dark rides, the boat rides. These attractions, I would say personally, give Rise of the Resistance a run for its money when it comes to the immersiveness of these rides and the technology that they utilize. We'll start first with Rapunzel's Lantern Festival, the Tangled boat ride that is in the Tangled themed area of the land known as Rapunzel's Forest. I know all the cool kids know about the Kingdom of Corona, but here it's called Rapunzel's Forest, okay? That's okay. Now, Rapunzel's Lantern Festival is an e-ticket boat ride that goes both indoors and outdoors. It's not exceptionally long from what I've seen from full ride-throughs. It's not like Pirates of the Caribbean Disneyland length, but it is like Frozen Ever After length. It's not super short, it's not exceedingly long, it's sort of right in that 4 to 5 minute range. Spoiler alert for the 4 Fantasy Springs attractions. I'll put a timestamp right there in case you just don't want to be spoiled and you want to skip ahead to even more news and more theorizing regarding this land. Okay, now that you've had your chance, the attraction, like I said, begins outdoors and we pass by Rapunzel's tower complete with a Rapunzel animatronic singing out the window of her tower, which looks amazing. We continue the attraction and pass by Eugene Fitzherbert, also known as Flynn Rider, before coming face to face with Maximus and heading to the indoor show scene portion of the attraction, where we can see an effect of Rapunzel swinging around and around a tree, similar to the Pirates of the Caribbean women chasing men, formerly men chasing women scene. It's done very similar to that. After passing the Snuggly Duckling, eventually we make our way to a nighttime scene where the healing incantation is being sung, Rapunzel's hair is glowing magically with fiber optic cables, and Eugene's hand is being healed, an amazing use of light in this scene. After seeing the Kingdom of Corona far off into the distance, we enter the next scene, which is sort of the grand finale, the Lantern Festival from Rapunzel's Lantern Festival, and this scene is amazing. The lanterns are suspended in midair, slowly rising and falling and flickering as you pass Rapunzel and Eugene's boat. Of course Pascal's there, why wouldn't he be? After that we make our way past some friends from the Snuggly Duckling before arriving at the unloading station. All in all, the attraction is about 4.5 to 5 minutes depending on how backed up it is, how fast people are loading, that sort of thing, which is, you know, not super long, like I said, not super short. After this, we have Frozen Kingdom, which is not the same as the World of Frozen that opened at Hong Kong recently. It's a little smaller, obviously because it's not an entire land, and the attraction is not a duplicate of Frozen Ever After from Epcot. It's its own complete standalone attraction. An attraction that, may I just say, makes even Hong Kong's version of Frozen Ever After, which is superior to Epcot's, look like child's play. It's just a little, it's tech demo for what Fantasy Springs has in store. However, even though it is superior, it starts out very similarly to Frozen Ever After, where first we come face to face with the trolls telling the story of Anna and Elsa's childhood before moving forward into the events of the film, the first film. We have another turntable effect of little Anna standing outside of little Elsa's room, knocking on it, obviously, do you want to build a snowman, before the scene rotates and we can see the inside of the room, Elsa just trying to control her powers. Very sad, very tragic. After this, we enter Anna and Elsa's, I guess, flooded portrait gallery, where we see an adult Anna. It's the first time in forever, except in Japanese, before we pass by a now grown Elsa preparing for her coronation. All the while, I must mention, all of these animatronics have practical faces, none of them are projection faces, and they aren't the molds from Frozen Ever After. These are all, I believe, brand new animatronics. Maybe not with the trolls, but definitely for Anna and Elsa and Kristoff, as we'll see later on in the attraction. We go through a scene that depicts the Love is an Open Door musical number. It's an outdoor scene. It's really well lit, except for it uses projections for Anna and Hans dancing. And I get the effect they were going for, obviously. It's just a personal taste. I don't love projections, but I understand why they did it. It looks fine. Next up is the confrontation scene, which is amazing. We see Elsa's powers unleash themselves for the first time. We see a fountain freeze, spikes shoot up from the ground. It's a very emotional, very jarring scene in the attraction. I think it plays really, really well. The fountain transition is especially nice, and then we pass by the Duke of Wesselton before entering the next scene. Now, like I said, most of the animatronics are new. This scene might look familiar to those of you who love Epcot like myself. This is very much inspired by the first scene of Frozen Ever After, although it is different. I do think the Sven animatronic in this scene is a direct copy from Frozen Ever After. It might not be, but I am pretty confident that it is. But now it's time to let it go as we go up a lift hill and the song begins. We have another Elsa animatronic on our right-hand side singing about being sad. And this room, by the way, might I say, this is not a complaint. It feels very vast. They've given you the feeling of being on this mountaintop with Elsa. It feels very, very expansive. After Elsa sings about being sad, she sings about letting it go, and we get a really cool bridge effect in the scene. The ice bridge extending out over the scene is actually telescoping out. It folds in on itself a little bit. If you watch the bridge, you can kind of see the moving parts. It expands as the magic creeps further down, and the projections obviously help cover up some of the mechanical parts. After this, we enter the grand finale of the Let It Go room that is very similar to Frozen Ever After, but not exactly the same. You have the Elsa animatronic on prominent display there, the same way she is at Epcot in Hong Kong, but it is done differently. I think the animatronic has different motions, but you still do get launched backwards similarly to Epcot's version. And if you couldn't tell there, the projections go way crazier in this version than they do in Frozen Ever After. They look crazy. I realize I just said I don't like projections. I don't like when projections are the focal point of the scene unless the entire attraction is based around them. When it's adding to the scenes, I'm okay with it. I like them sometimes, okay? Goodness. We pass by Anna, who I'm guessing is looking for her sister. She gets her heart frozen. It's very, very sad, before continuing backwards to another projection screen. This is the kind that I don't dig. Like, yeah, Disney, we saw the movie, that's why we're here. We all saw the movie, it's a good movie. You don't have to show us the movie again. We pass by Elsa mourning over her frozen sister's body before she magically unfreezes with the help of some projections and some handy-dandy costume effects, which create a very convincing unfreezing effect. Before we enter the end leg of the attraction, where we pass by an Olaf animatronic, our boat goes down a fun little drop, and we see the Kingdom of Arendelle magically unfreezing as Elsa learns about the power of love. I'm saying all of this in a jokey way, but it's actually very, very impressive. Except you can tell that they're using projections on the building. I don't know how they would do this practically, but I would be interested to see a practical version of this effect. After riding past Arendelle's newest Ice Master and Deliverer and his, I guess, trusty reindeer, we get a finale scene that is almost directly lifted from the movie, with everybody roller skating and enjoying the day at the castle. Another turntable, similar to the one we can find at Pirates, they really love their turntables, rotates to give the illusion that Anna and Elsa are skating in circles. It's actually just the turntable. But the ride isn't over yet, because we are seen off by Olaf, of course, before we head back to the loading zone. I don't know if they load and unload at the same station here yet. I maybe should watch more videos on that. I think it's just unloading. Now, I gotta say, while this ride is very good, I don't love it as much as Rapunzel's Lantern Festival, just because they use a ton of projections. I get that you have to have Elsa cast her magic in some way, but they use a lot of projections here. That's not to say I hate the ride. This is still an S-tier ride. Okay, don't get me wrong. Moving forward now to Peter Pan's Neverland, which is obviously themed after Neverland. It actually has two attractions. One, an outdoor attraction that if you are a fan of older DCA, you may be a fan of, and then one indoor simulator attraction that is very similar, I've heard, to the Spider-Man attraction at Islands of Adventure at Universal Studios. Again, I've heard, I've never been on it, but just looking at this area really evokes old Disneyland Fantasyland. Am I alone in that? I mean, come on, look at this. I mean, look at this. Fantasy Springs, Disneyland. I love this. Now, the first attraction is the smaller of the two. It's Tinkerbell's Busy Buggies, probably a C or a D ticket, and if you liked Heimlich's Choo Choo Train at Disney California Adventure, and maybe if you like Roger Rabbit's Cartoon Spin, you'll love this attraction. Now, I'm going to use some photos here to give you an overview of the attraction. It's like Heimlich's Choo Choo Train, where you go through giant versions of tiny objects, but you can rotate your ride vehicle in a similar way that you can on Roger Rabbit's Cartoon Spin. And that's it. It's just a fun little ride for everyone to enjoy, just a little middle of the day attraction, and I think that's just fine. But the bigger one is called Peter Pan's Neverland Adventure. Disney just can't stop with the banger names on this one. We got Remy's Ratatouille Adventure, Tiana's Bayou Adventure, and now we have Peter Pan's Neverland Adventure. How many adventures is it going to be before you realize that these names are very generic, Disney? Sorry. The ride's not bad, I just hate the names. Snow White did it first! Peter Pan's Neverland Adventure is a combination of a screen-based attraction and an attraction with physical sets and screens and projections. It's a whole thing. The beginning of the ride uses the forced perspective screens that you may be familiar with if you've ever been on Alice's Adventures in Wonderland at Disneyland, where it looks like you're looking sort of further into the distance, or Navi River Journey at Animal Kingdom. And the screens do interact with the physical sets around you, which is really, really cool. What's not super cool is you have to wear 3D glasses for this ride, which I know isn't a deal breaker for a lot of people. I just don't like it. My eyes are shaped weird. It's always blurry for me. But you know, as you can see, the best attraction I would compare it to stateside would definitely be Remy's Ratatouille Adventure with the mixture of 3D screens and physical sets. Not a bad thing. I like Remy's Ratatouille Adventure, but just 3D, man. I just don't love 3D. And all of this is not even taking into account the snacks, the restaurants, the restrooms that are probably awesome, or the Fantasy Springs Hotel, the brand new hotel that sits just on the edge of the land. Similar to the Grand Californian and Grizzly Peak, it backs right up to Fantasy Springs and it looks insane. So here's the other part of bad news I was talking to you about earlier. Let's just say it's gonna be a while if this happens at all. Off the top of my head, there's only really kind of one spot for Fantasy Springs at Walt Disney World, although there are a plethora over at Disneyland now that Disneyland Forward is approved, and we'll talk about that in a second. See, over at Walt Disney World, Disney is sort of taking their parks one by one and improving them. The most recent park to receive these improvements was, of course, Epcot, and it seems like next they'll be moving on to Animal Kingdom with the whole Dino Land retheme and expansion with Encanto and Indiana Jones, and then after that expansion is done over Animal Kingdom, they will then move on to the Magic Kingdom where Beyond Big Thunder Mountain will finally happen in real life, not just blue sky anymore. But I do not believe that Fantasy Springs or a Fantasy Springs style area is in the plans for Beyond Big Thunder Mountain. So what does that leave? Disney's Hollywood Studios. And Fantasy Springs, if you kind of think about it, is a highly immersive land like Star Wars Galaxy's Edge where you are stepping into your favorite movies. I think if they were to build Fantasy Springs at Walt Disney World or a similar-ish land to Fantasy Springs, it would go at Hollywood Studios. Where at Hollywood Studios? No, that's not my job. Maybe the animation courtyard, I really dislike that corner of the park, or if they really wanted to, although I kind of like it now, they could take out the Indiana Jones Stunt Spectacular because that does take up a lot of room, but I really like the Stunt Spectacular. So like I said, we probably got a little bit of time before the exclusivity clause expires and then they can actually start building this new Fantasy Springs expansion at Walt Disney World. They have to get through Animal Kingdom first, then they have to get through Beyond Big Thunder Mountain, which is like the biggest expansion in Magic Kingdom history, and then maybe we'll get Fantasy Springs at Hollywood Studios or a Fantasy Springs ride or two. Meanwhile, over at Disneyland, we could be seeing it a lot sooner, and that's because of Disneyland Forward. Disney now has a lot of plans and a lot of land and a lot of money to work with over at Disneyland. But don't worry, this is also going to be another 5 to 10 years. It's going to be forever. It's going to be a long wait. If you watched my video last week, I'm going to put a card right up there in the corner. If you didn't, we talk all about Disneyland Forward and what to expect in the coming years. You know that Disney's first plan, I imagine, is to build a new parking garage on the opposite side of Harbor Boulevard and do an entirely new Eastern Gateway project. And then, after that, they will begin construction on the Avatar Experience. I mean, it's a land. I don't know why we're still calling it an experience. And then, after that, maybe they can break ground on Fantasy Springs. But keep in mind, that would be maybe 2 years for the parking garage and the Eastern Gateway, and then maybe another 3 years for Pandora/Avatar. That's 5 years. That's enough time for the exclusivity clause to expire. So if they wanted to do Disneyland Forward Phase 2 with Fantasy Springs, they could do it after Avatar if they wanted to. And of course, with the new rezoning, they have the room to build essentially whatever they want to on the Simba and Toy Story parking lots. So it remains to be seen where Fantasy Springs would go, if it goes anywhere at all, but I would imagine maybe the Simba parking lot connected to California Adventure. But I think this land deserves to go over on the Disneyland side because all of the properties are Disney. Peter Pan, Tangled, and Frozen are all films made by Walt Disney Animation Studios, and I feel like match the vibe of Disneyland better than they would match the vibe of California Adventure. So suffice it to say that Fantasy Springs is a very, very long ways off, if it happens at all, in the American parks. And honestly, I think truthfully that it really does have a chance. There is a chance that we get a Fantasy Springs at Disneyland. I believe the possibility of it coming to Disneyland is a lot stronger than the possibility of it coming to Walt Disney World, or even just when I talk about Fantasy Springs coming to the American parks, I mean a version of Fantasy Springs, whether that's some of the rides, maybe that's some of the land, maybe it's a little tiny version of Fantasy Springs, maybe it's a bigger version of Fantasy Springs. It's going to be a while. We have at least another 10 years over at Walt Disney World and at least another 5 years just to break ground, so probably like another 8 years at Disneyland until we see Fantasy Springs, like I said, if at all. But Disney, I am imploring you, look at this footage. Disney, I only implore you about one thing ever, and I will never stop imploring you about it, but I will implore you about bringing Fantasy Springs stateside just this once. It's so amazing. But now I turn the question over to you, my dear viewer. If Disney were to bring Fantasy Springs in some way, what Disney park would you want Fantasy Springs to inhabit? Where would you want it at Walt Disney World or at Disneyland? And don't say, I don't want Fantasy Springs. I want new and original IPs exclusive to the parks, because we all know that's not gonna happen. Listen, I get it. I really do. You gotta let it go. Everest was almost 20 years ago. I want to hear from you all because I think it's a really interesting question. And there's no second option here, okay? You have to put it somewhere. If you're forced, Disney, Bob Iger is holding a magic wand to your head and is forcing you to put Fantasy Springs in one of the American parks. Where is it going? So at the end of the day, the only thing standing between us and Fantasy Springs is time. So I guess all there is to do is wait. You just gotta wait for Fantasy Springs. Okay, how long has it been? Like 16 seconds? Oh, this is gonna be impossible. I can't do it. I can't wait this long. I need it now. I need it right now. Hey there, everybody. Thank you so much for watching me strategize and also theorize about Fantasy Springs coming to the American parks. This was the whole video was about. If you enjoyed it, please be sure to hit the like button and hit the subscribe button if you're new around here and you want more videos like this where I just whine that the overseas stuff is cooler because Disney just has an unlimited budget over there and they could spend as much as they want to on projects, not products. That's the end card. There's no script here. No scripts allowed. A massive thank you, as always, to all of my supporters over at patreon.com/offhanddisney. They get access to videos, early, exclusive Patreon videos, and they can message me if they have any inquiries or problems. And believe me, I will do my best to answer your messages. There's, again, no script here. If you feel like you would want to join their ranks, head over to the link in the description, and even just $1 a month will get you access to most of the perks. Not all, but most. Certainly most. But if you would rather follow me for free, I have other social media accounts on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. I am at Offhand Disney on all of those services. Makes it pretty easy to find me if you want to go follow me over there. But that, everybody, I believe is the entire video this week. Thank you all so much for watching. I sure hope you enjoyed it, me just talking about Fantasy Springs and how it may or may not happen at Disney World. Remember, down in the comments below, let me know, where is it going? You can't choose no. You can't choose it's not going anywhere. You have to choose somewhere. Thank you all. Again, goodbye.